Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and I'm super excited to be doing a collab with two of my best internet buds, Big Bad Mama, who has been a huge help to the channel in so many ways, and Mr. Claude Balls. So, starting with BBM, how are you guys doing?
Good. It's a pleasure to be here, Atheist Junior, and especially with my friend Claude Balls, too, two of my friends. So this is great.
Awesome.
Yes,
Uh,
I'm doing fine too. Yeah, and it's good to be here, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. Uh, so we can hope we can win some souls for rationality and free thinking.
I like the sound of that, and we even have Mark Stoney in the chat. I know he wanted to be here for this one. Um, okay,
That's
so
great.
in the if I can give sort of the quick backstory, um, basically Kent Hovind got a comment on one of his videos from an oblivious Christian who basically said that, oh, I like your message, and I was enjoying your content, and I was just so shocked to discover that you had been imprisoned for not paying taxes, and then I dug deeper and I saw all these things about you know your wives and this whole so this whole web of Hovindisms, and uh, he basically said that I hope you get right with God, sort of thing. Kent will read the comment, and this set Kent off to give a whole like Hovind style PowerPoint. He gives a PowerPoint presentation about how he was not guilty of any of the crimes that he went to jail for 9 years for, which is just, it's funny when you describe it like that because only Kent Hovind would do something like this. You know what I mean?
AJ, can I ask you a question? What do you think really prompted this as opposed to just a single message he got?
Um, well, it doesn't take, I feel like it doesn't take much to convince Kent to bring this stuff up. You know what I mean? But I couldn't really say. I mean, maybe he's just starting to get fed up with Sandra, and her back talk, and he just wanted to, take out some righteous anger by reading about this stuff and saying, look how every single person who was involved with my criminal trial is, rapes babies and wants to shoot, Jim Carrey into the sun. He wants to, make it so people can no longer watch the NFL. He wants to remove cowgirl from the earth, so nobody can do cowgirl anymore. Like all these terrible things. These people who persecuted me and prosecuted me, they did all these terrible things. Now they're trying to, this is how bad these people are. And yeah, so he basically goes through and just, I don't know what prompted it. I mean, Kent, who knows how the machinations of Hovind's mind operate. Truly. Um, but yeah, let's get into this. Let me see. Here we go.
I recently listened to your seminars and was taken aback by your wit and love of the Lord. I was then troubled to find out the government imprisoned you for not paying taxes and strange accusations from women in your life. Don't know anything about you, but whether or not any of this is true in any way, I hope you're a kind of person who can pass through the narrow door. Jesus is King, and all tongues will confess, and all who believe and repent will be forgiven. Please keep doing good things, even if in the past you haven't. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Does that be Matthew's?
I have to say that last sentence. I mean, I don't know if "thank you" is technically a sentence, but that last sentence is a real zinger. I mean, I like that a lot, honestly.
One comment on that question is he mentioned strange accusations from women in your life. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, let's be clear that at the time of this video, Kent has been convicted of domestic abuse. So I don't know what the strange accusations are that.
Well, that, I mean, that the way it's worded doesn't technically have to mean the wives, because there are other women around Kent, you know.
That's true.
There are accusations from, Joe Hovind, sort of coming indirectly from Kent's brother. If you remember that, Claude, you showed that video on your channel of Kent, that really terrible live stream he did where he just digs into Eric, and he's talking about how he wants, Eric bought some of the properties from the Pensacola Dinosaur Adventureland fair and square from the government. They were being auctioned, and he bought them. So Kent is basically mad because he wants those properties, even though he doesn't live in Pensacola, because they're being rented out to people, and Eric Hovind is collecting a pretty nice salary from those properties. You know what I mean? It's quite lucrative, and Kent basically claims that because Eric was in charge of really everything with DAL and keeping it alive when Kent was in jail, obviously the donations and donors and everything would go through Eric's hands, and he used that money while Kent was in jail to purchase some of the properties. And then Kent basically thought that, well, when I get out, Eric should just give those to me. But, he bought them in his own name because he had to. And Eric Hovind basically said, after how you treated me and Joe when you got out of jail, why the hell would I sign these over to you? I'm almost done, but, he is using that rent money to support Joe, who should, basically have to do nothing now. She's retired. She should not have to lift a finger, in my opinion, because I feel real bad for her. And she deserves that money. She's entitled to it. But Kent wants those properties back. And basically his own brother called him out on this, and sort of demanded that Kent make a public apology to Joe and to Eric. And
yes, Kent refused, and the
Yeah,
thing with Kent is he never changes. And if you listen to the audio of a phone call between Kent and Joe in prison, it's very soul destroying, if you have a soul, that is, in that she's asking him to change, and he just completely says it's her that needs to change. And then she ends up saying, "Yes, sir." And I think that is just disgraceful. And of course, so when he got out of jail and she had the upper hand, and Eric, I think they reluctantly, because he was their father and the husband, they just realized that they could not live the rest of their lives with this domineering narcissist. So that's what happened. He got his just desserts.
Right. Well, Big Ben Mama, did you want to say anything?
Well, and they got his underwear and Swiss Army knife to
boot. Those phone calls are really sort of tough to listen to, just because Kent is classically stubborn. But it is always kind of fascinating to listen to Kent Hovind when he doesn't know that he's being recorded, because you truly see the real Kent. Although it's not like Kent really holds back anything when he's doing his YouTubes, but there is sort of a difference with how he talks. But I just wanted to say one more thing about how Kent told his brother, basically, I'm not going to apologize, and it's actually Eric who owes me an apology, which is just classic Kent. But he was basically saying that he's still supporting Joe. And Eric, I forget the name. I think it's Robert Hovind. He wrote back, Kent's older brother. I guess he was a math teacher, or maybe he was the engineer. I don't know. He basically told him, "How are you supporting her? Because doing it indirectly, just because Eric has those properties and is giving the money to Joe, that does not count." And Kent, he said, well, if Eric gives me the properties back, then I will support Joe, if I can. He had to add that caveat, but okay. I mean, let's
And the
continue.
brother hasn't spoken to him since.
No, and I think that's totally warranted.
Right.
And it's the sisters the same, and many of his secretaries, you know, but it's never his fault, of course. Yeah.
Hannah, that's a joke, Hannah.
Yes, not too many people remember as far as back as that, but yeah, that was his terrible joke. And of course, he was trying to marry off, not to himself, I think, all his secretaries, and they were just embarrassed by it, you know. Yulia, all those people like that, they
Well,
had
he
to
was trying
leave.
to
He was so
trying to
horrible.
marry off kids that were
Yeah,
coming on his show as well, which was
very
creepy.
creepy and cringy.
I love that name, Yulia. What a beautiful name. Okay, let's continue.
Yes.
Or who did that comment? Archer? Oh, I thought it was Matthew. I put Matthew later on here. Okay. Atheists and God haters have run with this tax protester claim against me for 17 years now. They cannot win a debate defending their dumb evolution religion against me, and they are jealous of my popularity and my good looks and my money. Well, my popularity. So they look for anything to try to make me look bad and divert attention from their own silly beliefs.
What did Kent say? He sort of mumbled something after saying they're jealous of my money, because I think he realized that kind of sounded bad, and it goes against his narrative of, you know, oh, I got $20 shoes at Walmart and they have a hole in them. You know,
I don't own anything. Yeah.
You know, I wear the same underwear for 6 months straight to save money. You know.
Sandra's spending too much time at Walmart.
Yeah, you know, she spends, you know, and the kids they leave the door to the refrigerator open, you know, and even though refrigerators are designed to be able for people to do that, because they know that people are going to leave the doors open. So what happens when the door is opened and then they close it? The motor kicks back on and works to remove that excess heat. That's how fridges are designed to operate. You know, it's not going to shoot your electric bill up through the ceiling. But Kent, you know, I can just picture, he's just like that dad that's like, you know, no, you kids can't have any of our water. Go drink from the hose. You know, that type of person.
You kids have to stop the 4-minute showers.
Yeah. You know, because Kent, he can do 5 things when he's in the shower. I'm not going to make you guess what they are because I don't want to, you know. He washes his hair twice. He washes his body. Anyway. You have to do that in the shower, you know. And then he says he shaves, and
yes.
There was one more. So I did the math on this because I've been watching like tons of, you guys both make a lot of shorts about Hovind, which I really enjoy watching because it's like he really works well for that format, I think, because, you know, people can put up with a minute of Hovind, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's tolerable, you know, versus some of my longer videos. But anyway, I lost my train of thought, but let's keep going. I'll get it back. You know, there's 3 times of a genius, you know, a bad memory and, you know, enabling pedophiles.
Belief that they are related to a strawberry and a whole universe came from a dot of nothing. So they jump on this one thing. Oh, he's a tax protester. Okay, first of all, 2 days from now, December 16th, is the anniversary of the American patriots dumping tea in the harbor over a big tax protest. I'm thrilled they did what they did. How many of you are glad they freed a free country to grow up in? Yeah, they did the right thing. Now, for the record, I am not a tax protester, never have been. I've always said if you owe a tax, you ought to pay it, okay? I've said hundreds of times, if you owe it, pay it. Is Kent Hovind a tax protester? Forbes magazine. Whoa, Peter Riley. An accredited university invites tax protester, creationist, and felon Kent Hovind to speak. Wikipedia, Kent Hovind, a fundamental evangelist and tax protester. Let's see. Kent Hovind, the ultimate grifter of the 2021 century. Really? Kent Hovind's mugshot. Unfortunately, Creation science is not a crime. Fortunately, tax evasion is. They accused me of tax protesting, tax evasion, okay?
AJ,
Kent
can I
Hovind
say
tax
something here?
evasion case.
So it was the court itself that deemed Kent a tax protester. In 2006, they said that his defense was based on bizarre arguments, some of which constitute tax protester arguments. And also in 1996, he filed bankruptcy to avoid Chapter 13 bankruptcy to avoid paying federal income taxes, claiming he was not a citizen of the U.S. I haven't filed a tax return in years, he said in 2003. I just wanted to add that.
Yes, he's even on there's a clip on YouTube of him saying he hasn't filed a tax return in 28 years. So what he will say is that, of course, he pays every tax that he owes, but he doesn't owe any taxes. He's being less than honest here. And of course he does owe taxes. Anyway, we can hear
Right.
more.
And this is, what I actually asked as a question during the Q&A. I tried to ask Ken this, and he basically just didn't even try to engage with the question at all. Like he didn't even read the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, which is just, that's frustrating.
We still need to play it though, because it was funny.
Yeah, we'll play it. That'd be fun. Because I think they got your question in there too, which he just also whiffed on. He pretty much does that every time you ask a question. It's like somebody playing t-ball and yet the kid still misses. I don't know how that happens. Okay, you guys know what t-ball is?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure, Claude.
Not really.
It's like for kids, just to make it easier, instead of playing like baseball where they have a pitcher,
Okay,
the
right.
ball is on this little plastic thing called a tee
Okay,
in front of
I
them.
get it.
So you just smack it, and it's like it's like miniature golf. It's easy. Okay.
Great series. Kent Hovind is Innocent series. You ought to watch that. Okay. They accuse us of being a cult leader. Who is doing this? Let's see. Kent Hovind is a communist.
I mean, the name of the channel is right there. So just saying.
Cult leader in Lenox, Alabama. Here we go. Prison closed. There we go. Tribute to Kent Hovind. Are Kent Hovind's tax dollars funding teaching evolution?
I'm just going to interrupt real quick.
This is from Matthew's birthday.
No, that is second day Christmas.
Wow. Thank you, ma'am. Later. Okay. There. So, what tax dollars are those, Kent? Bill Ludlow. Tax protester sues the government. Anybody wears a hat on their head like that needs to be cautious listening to him.
Why? It almost sounded like he was going to say that they need to be executed, or the government, like the homos.
I wouldn't be surprised if he said that.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Hovind, evangelist who apparently believes he doesn't owe taxes. Well, that's not true. Kent Hovind, tax protester, tax fraud. Florida man gets his dinosaur park seized by the feds. Now, reported to Kent Hovind battling the IRS for years. I didn't battle them. They came after me. Okay, anyway. Let's see.
How do you figure? Or what do you mean you didn't start it? You did start it by not paying the taxes.
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
I really love Kent's excuse. We're going to hear it later, but he said that he wrote letters to the IRS basically saying, do I really have to pay this tax? And they did not write Kent back. So that means it's free real estate. He can just go to town breaking, tax laws because they didn't write him back. He asked, he's asking the tough questions to, the biggest, people in government, and they're too scared to write back. So he's going to, Kent Hovind, he's the man who swung at the government and then missed and then fell over, and then they put him in handcuffs and took him away, but
Did he just say there they didn't attack him?
attack him. I don't.
Well, and that he never attacked them. I'm saying, sorry.
Exactly. No, he did. He said, I didn't start this. The IRS started this, which is just obviously not true because, you know, what I mean,
Plus, it's the
IRS
job. It's the job of the
Exactly.
IRS to
Exactly.
look at people who are not paying their correct taxes.
Right.
Right. And he filed false and frivolous lawsuits against the IRS. He made threats of harm to them, filed false complaints against the agents, and he did his share of attacking.
Yeah, he did that to lots of people. Okay, let's keep going.
This guy's a tax expert. Oh, we better listen to him then. Okay. Matthew. I thought it was Matthew. Sorry about that. Thank you for the question.
I was wrong, Doc. You're right.
It is Matthew. Okay. I think it's way past time I give a thorough answer. Since I moved to Lenox, April 2016, some have spread rumors that I'm a tax protester and various other bad labels, cult leader, etc., they put on me without knowing the entire truth. These same rumors prompted your question. It's a sad reality of living in a small community that some have nothing better to do than try to make themselves look good by tearing down what others build or do. Paul said in Acts 24, they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither can they prove the things they accuse me of. It's okay to give a defense once in a while. They were accusing Paul of all kinds of things. He said, that's it. They can't prove any of this, okay? Acts 25, when he came to Jerusalem, when he was come, the Jews came down from Jerusalem, and they laid many and grievous complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. And he answered for himself, neither against the law of the Jews, neither against the temple, nor.
I found it interesting that he started his time clock right there at 2006, when he's been investigated by the IRS since the mid-90s. He first has been on their radar, and I just find it interesting that he goes all the way to 2006 and kind of disregards that entire history.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. Yeah. It is a bit arbitrary, you know.
Yet against Caesar, have I offended anything at all? It's okay to maintain your innocence if you're innocent, okay? Since moving to Lenox, brought nearly $3 million of revenue into this area. With all the building we've done, 25,000 plus or minus visitors we've had from all 50 states and 75 foreign countries. We have seen thousands of lives changed and nearly 270 baptized in our lake. But the rumors, gossip, and slander persist, calling us a cult. My answer to your question, Matthew, and this phase of my life starts with this woman, Judge Margaret Casey Rogers. Let me explain what happened, okay? Education and career. Margaret Rogers, born in Pensacola in the U.S. Army for 2 years, received a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of West Florida in 1989. That's the year I did my first, that's the year I moved to Pensacola and did the debate and humiliated the professor there.
That's the year I was born.
And you know what he says here? Okay, keep playing it, and then I want to comment, AJ, if it's okay.
Sure, just, you know, let me know.
Sure.
You know, we should, maybe we can have a code word when you want me to pause. You know, you could say like,
Pause.
I don't know, beaches.
And I think somebody got a burr under their saddle. Anyway, let's see. Okay, July 14th, Rogers was nominated by President Bush to.
So he's saying this woman, the judge, saw a 1989 debate, and from that debate, she chose to persecute Kent from that day forward. That's almost what it sounded like.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure that she, you know, got wind that he was, you know, he was a child of God and, you know, loved Jesus. And, you know, that after that revelation, she had it out for him. You know, she created a satanic shrine within her bathroom with, you know, Hawaiian shirts and you know, pentagrams. And, you know, she had it out for him. She cursed him, you know.
This false idea that she was after him and hated Christians. We'll come to a bit shortly where he really goes into that too. But it's just not true. And I believe someone, Rudy Davis, one of his cohorts, and then the guy Byram who put up the website Kent Hovind is innocent. It's just part of the shtick that they are circulating around. There's no evidence that she was out to get him at all, but it's just convenient for Kent to repeat this nonsense. In fact, when he had a trial in 2015 for trying to interfere with the sale of his properties, that's the one he got off. He was convicted of contempt, but Rogers then voided that contempt conviction. So she's actually a very reasonable person, because if she'd been out for him, she would have jailed him under contempt charges. So we can prove that he's just lying here.
She was appointed by George W. Bush, one of the most Christian presidents we've ever had as well.
Right. Well, it's like Kent got the impression that, this judge, really seems to, end up going after a lot of Christians. But, if she is, lives in Pensacola, I don't know what you call it when a judge, works in a certain city, it's like, I don't know if there's a word for it or whatever, like they're being stationed there, like when you're in the military, something like that. But, she works as a judge in Pensacola, which is one of the most densely packed with churches cities in the United States. There's a lot of Christians there. There's a lot of religious people there. There's a lot of, Christians, specifically, like I think Southern Baptists. And so she's going to, a lot of the people that go through, in front of her in her courtroom are going to be Christians, just because of the population percentages, right? I mean, the demographics. So
yeah, exactly.
It just, what is she supposed to do? Maybe the Christians should stop committing crimes, and then, it won't seem that way. I don't know.
To a seat in the U.S. State District Court for the Northern District of Florida. She became a judge in Pensacola. Vacated by Lacey Collio. Complaints Board. Okay, complaints about politicians. Here we go. Judge Margaret Casey Rogers, fraud warning. Beware of Judge Margaret Casey Rogers. Why? She's a bizarre individual who is completely unethical and biased in her rulings. Judge Rogers should be investigated and, when found guilty, confined to prison. This woman is completely unfit person to be a judge. She's biased against Christians and in favor of evildoers, as her record shows. She is paid by taxpayers and yet is a public enemy. Beware of Judge Margaret Casey Rogers. To show how deranged she is she claimed that Pastor Kent Hovind's supposed offenses were worse than a rapist.
This never happened. This is a lie.
Yes, and also note that freehovind.com is the source of this. It's been put up by freehovind.com. It's just a joke. It's using his own claims to prove his own claims.
Yeah, some Hovindite wrote a review on some website, and that makes it true.
Right. Well, it's from freekenhovind.com. So.
Capital letters. Oh my goodness, that means it's someone different. Oh my.
I mean, I know why they do that. I just thought it was funny. I love the URLs of these sites. KentHovind.com, freeKentHovind.com. Kent Hovind does not have herpes.com. Like, they're just great.
Judge Margaret Casey Rogers sentenced pastor to many years in prison for what doesn't even constitute a crime, and yet is on record for saying it's worse than a rapist. She illegally had this removed from the court transcript. 7 U.S. citizens heard her say this and have filed affidavits. She said at my sentencing, your crime is worse than rape.
Why would it matter if they're U.S. citizens or not? Why would you mention that?
And do you know that she didn't actually say it? And of course, and that's why it's not in the transcript, not because somebody had it removed. That is conspiracy nonsense. But do you know there was a woman that sat and wrote notes all during the trial, and she was a Hovind follower called Jen Fishburne, and you can find her on YouTube. And she said it was Eric who actually made the comment about the rap. And he said it when he was asking for leniency for his mother. And during that time, he said his father was being treated more harshly than a rapist. So that's where this whole thing came from. It was never said by Judge Rogers. It was Eric who felt at the time that his father was being treated more harshly than a rapist. And this is how this has emerged. It's a total lie and fabrication from the Kent Hovind lovers.
Nice find.
Oh, sorry, Agent.
No, I was just saying that's a good find. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you look up Jen Fishburne, Jen, and then Fishburne with an E on the end, and talking about Hovind on YouTube, there's an interview with her too. So, and there's also, if you look up on just on the internet, you'll find a written talk about that. So I think it's a good one, and that's what happened, and it just exposes Hovind's false claims.
It is, and building on that, I watched that same video that Claude's talking about, and she was the only one taking notes in the courtroom. And Judge Rogers said, sometimes those convicted of a heinous crime are sentenced to less time than Mr. Hovind. And then she said, Hovind dishonored the men and women in the military, his fellow Americans, and the Constitution. No mention of rape from her.
Right.
And as Claude said, it was Eric, and it was only when Eric was defending his mother, though I think he had given kind of a tepid defense of his father the day before, but Eric said justice has to be blind, he said, as he agreed with the judge sentencing his father to a sentence worse than that of a rapist. Something like that, right, Claude?
Yes, that's right. And this has been spun by his supporters, by Hovind's supporters. Terrible.
Right. Well, she, if you get the chance to read her sort of final statement before sentencing, Kat, it is really quite it's quite moving, I guess. It's quite true, because she makes a lot of good points about how, for Kent to live in America and take advantage of all of the opportunities afforded to him as if he was a taxpayer, because Kent has admitted that he didn't pay income taxes for over 2 decades. And then, also with structuring and the failure to withhold, which we'll get into all that. And so that's quite a bit of money that he kept from the government, or tried to. So she basically said, you are under the protection of our military. You get to drive on our roads. You get the protection of our police and firefighters. You have all the benefits of living in America, and then like a bald eagle soared over the courtroom, and I'm proud to be an American started playing, and there was Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders came out, and it was great. It was a very moving speech. But yeah, I agree definitely with what she said, because Kent is taking advantage of all those opportunities, but it's basically like he's not paying for them. It's like stealing, and somebody needs to do something about that, and they should put him in jail. Oh wait, they did. So I have to step away for a second, so I'm just gonna let this play, but I'll be right back.
Paid for the court transcript, had to wait 16 months to get it, and it had been altered. This case should be overturned. She should be investigated and probably impeached, at least. Okay. Anti-Christian judge presided over Kent Hovind. Let's see. 20. In 2006, a government SWAT team raided Kent Hovind's Creation Science Ministry. Kent and his wife, Jo, got arrested at gunpoint. Jo was dragged out of bed and not allowed to get dressed. This violent method of arresting a suspect is usually reserved for hardcore gang-related activity. It was disproportionate and a total over-the-top display of force. She was taken to the courthouse in her nightgown. They were both thrown in prison. Joe got released from jail a few years ago, but as of February 2015, Kent maintains his innocence from behind bars. A SWAT team coming after a Baptist preacher and his wife. My wife, Joe, and I were virgins on our honeymoon, faithful for 42 years. When I got home from prison, she said, "I'm divorcing you. I'm scared of the IRS." I've never divorced a woman. I've never left a woman. I've never hit a woman, never body slammed a woman. Okay? It's all baloney. But she divorced me. What do? You move on. Okay? Tag. Well, Margaret Casey Rogers. Ever wonder why Kent's in prison?
Any thoughts about that? I'm waiting for this UPS truck to pull up to my front door. So I actually haven't left you, but yeah, we have 100 viewers watching, so that's awesome.
Well, the reason why they took the feds there with the arms is that, and even today, Hovind indicates there's arms on the property, and if anybody breaks in, they're going to come off in second best. He would have been doing the same in his old adventure land, and it's not surprising that they when they raided his property, they took some firearms with them. The fact of the rubbish about he was virgin on his honeymoon, that possibly is true, but it's totally irrelevant to being convicted of a tax crime. Totally irrelevant. Why would he even say that here?
And what about the 300 women that he dated in high school, the 300 girls?
So all that is just irrelevant, and it's typical Kent obfuscation.
Was AJ gone again?
I think he might have gone. We can talk about something till he comes back. Yes, so that's that. Yeah, why did he even raise that? His wife and I, we were virgin on the honeymoon. He may as well.
So weird.
Yeah, it is just weird to say that in this context, and it is actually typical of Kent. When he gets cornered by any topic, he will suddenly change the topic. So I've got him on the ropes. I think on one chance when I managed to speak to him online here, and over his Brady Byram, the guy that who's author of his website here, and over things that Brady apparently did with his daughter. And Kent, as soon as I got him on the ropes over it, Kent said, "Anyway, what have you done for the Lord?" Or, "Have you ever slept with a woman that you were not married to?" So suddenly I'm the terrible person because I have slept with a woman to whom I was not married, but his good friends who are up to activities with children, oh no, that's somehow different. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, but you said I haven't done anything with children, and you really tripped him up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, I'm back, guys.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so Kent, he always, and I think we all know about Kent's accusations against me when it comes to sexual partners. And he gets into the whole thing about anal sex. But I would just have to tell Kent, the only people I have had anal sex with were women. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, but
it's so funny.
I hope you get a chance to tell him that sometime.
I have that thought did occur to me, and I was like, oh, that would have been pretty funny because it's true. Okay, let's keep.
Margaret Rogers, quite an interesting character, has a reputation of issuing heavy-handed justice towards Christians. She received national attention.
I'm just saying it was her idea. I'm just saying I did not.
This website, Planet Zion, is that a super religious right-wing site. So of course Kent goes there for this.
Well, is that any connection to the book he used to sell about the elders of Zion?
Right, he did do that.
Are they? They're probably a pretty anti-Semitic site. I would
probably
just wager a guess.
So.
Likely, that's why it irritated me. I don't know if Kent will do it in this video, but there's been lots of videos where he sort of scrolls through articles that are negative and reads the title but doesn't read anything in the article. And there's that old one from the National Center for Science Education that says creationism gets a dash of anti-Semitism, and that article is just all about the different books that Kent was selling at the time, and that being one of them. So it's like, he will read these different titles and be like, anti-Semitism? What? What? Okay, next article. Kent Hovind, evil. Me? Evil? Okay, next article. He's in it.
But he's got this one from the Washington Times coming up, and when it does,
not the Huffington Post.
I'll tell you something about the Washington Times. Yeah.
I like that one. I like that when he says that. Okay.
In September 2009, she tried to send 2 Christian school teachers to prison for several years for guess what? For praying. They were praying over their food in the cafeteria. She wanted to send them to prison for that.
Okay, so this is just such an exaggeration. So these two, they were teachers, I guess, and so this type of thing that they were in trouble for, this was like basically after a pattern of this behavior when basically the charter of the school, the guidelines of the school prohibited any faculty members from promoting their religion to students at official school events, which I think is totally reasonable, because if you are, if you're a Muslim family and you have your kid enrolled in a school, like you wouldn't really feel comfortable with them trying to get them to go to a Christian Bible study, or giving them a chick tract or whatever, you know what I mean, stuff like that. It's funny because our America is so entrenched in Christianity that it's like stuff like this just seems normal to people, and they get offended when there's pushback, because the ACLU filed a lawsuit against this school because of what they did. And on the surface, I can see how people would see like, oh, well, all they did was pray or whatever. But it's like, well, there's more to it than that. And if these same people, if there were Muslim teachers who busted out the prayer mats and wanted to, point themselves towards Mecca and do a prayer with their kids, they would freak the fuck out. You know what I mean? So it's not just praying, is it? When my religion, just praying is no big deal, but I just think that's fine. It's such a double standard.
Exactly. The judge issued an order here prohibiting the school district and the employees from promoting, endorsing, or causing prayers during school-sponsored events.
Right.
20 days later, the principal and the athletic director or whatever led them in prayer in violation of the injunction. And that's what the issue was. I think Claude can speak more to that.
Yes, you will see it on the next screen where Kent reads out this and he says it's because they were praying. But he omits the last paragraph or the last sentence, which says it resulted from an agreement reached after a lawsuit. So these people agreed not to do this. It was a part of a lawsuit, and they broke that agreement, and that's what they're being charged with. But he doesn't read the. When you come to the next screen, you'll notice that he stops before it gets to that, which once again proves his dishonesty.
Right. So like I said, that this school, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this school, I believe they had policies in effect where they didn't want teachers promoting religion at official school events, which these guys did repeatedly. Like I believe they did stuff like this at pep rallies. So this had been going on, and then you get the lawsuit from the ACL, the American Communist Lawyers Union, and then they have the judge, basically making a ruling that's even more serious than what the school was already telling them to do, and then they agree to it and then violate it. You know what I mean? They're like, oh well, we're Christians, we're not going to be persecuted. God's law is higher than man's law. God, I jerk off to God with one hand and pray with the other, and I will do that. I don't care. I will jerk it in front of these kids for the Lord. And there was a lawsuit from the ACLU, and you have organizations like Freedom from Religion Foundation, and Kent was really bothered by these places, but I'm glad that they exist, because this stuff would just go on uncontested. So, all right, let's get to the next slide. Alt TV. Alt TV.
Hang on there.
Oh.
No prayers or religion in my town, she said, according to Washington Times. Okay, Margaret. Let's see.
Yes, I'm sure that she said there will be no prayers or religion in my town of Pensacola, Florida. Which, yeah, I'm sure that she said that. I'm sure that the capitalization was wrong too. Yeah.
Yeah. Here he
facing
mentioned,
jail.
I'm sorry.
No, that was my bad. Go ahead.
Here he talks about the Washington Times. That was a newspaper founded by the cult leader Reverend Moon, if you remember him.
Oh, really?
The Unification Church. And it's known for super conservative political stance. It's published racist birther content about Obama and neo-Confederate historical revisionism.
Wow, that's interesting, because honestly, with the name like Washington Times, it just sounds like a normal, reputable newspaper. Like I didn't know
Exactly.
I didn't know that, because it just seemed like whatever, Washington Times. It's not like the anti-New World Order. We hate those can't say who, but they were on the banks. We hate those guys. We hate Jews timely. We hate Jews times.
For prayer. School prayer charges stir protests. Students, teachers, and local pastors are.
Oh, and thank you for the super chat, Sean McLaughlin. Just thank you so much.
Are protesting over a court case involving a northern Florida school principal and athletic director who are facing criminal charges and up to 6 months in jail for offering a mealtime prayer. There have been yard signs, T-shirts, and mass student protests during graduation ceremonies this spring on behalf of Pace High School, which is a Pensacola suburb, Frank Lay, principal, and school athletic director Robert Freeman, who will go on trial September 17th at a federal district court. And guess who the judge was? Margaret Casey Rogers. Okay. Prosecution of Kent Hovind was led by Michelle Heldmeyer.
How he skipped that last bit, that what the prosecution was for breaching an agreement, not for actually the praying part, and he left that bit out because he's dishonest. Thank you.
Well, it's like I got after Kent during a debate we did, because he did the thing he always does when he reads this certain slide talking about the geologic column, where it's from a textbook, and it says if there was a column of sediments deposited since the formation of the earth, then but no such column exists. But literally, like, there's a sentence in between saying, well, if there was a column of sediments that was deposited since Earth, originated, then we'd be able to have, a perfect record of the geologic column. But we don't, because there's inconformities. There's areas that never had any rock at all. There's, gaps. And there's parts where the rocks get folded over on one another, and it's like disrupted. But the geologic column is not a literal thing. It's not a literal representation on Earth. It's a model. So it's the idealized version of how the rock layers are. But and that's what he was saying, that if we had a perfect geologic column laid down, we could we can see this, but no such column exists. But Kent leaves that part out and just said, oh, well, if there was a column of sediments deposited since the Earth originated, but that column doesn't exist, as if he's talking about the geologic column. And that's why I called him out. I was like, Ken, why did you totally skip the second sentence? And then he was like, oh, okay, I'll read it just for you, AJ. Just for you, you little homo.
Jeez. And then doesn't he say, where'd the top layer come from? Outer space?
Yeah. Nobody's answered this question. I've asked 82 atheists. None of them answered. Not even Grayson last time that he answered. I enjoyed the debate I did with Kent where he brought that up, and I was trying to answer it by explaining that with limestone you have a source of new material from creatures that have shells because they make babies, but I just tried to get him to explain how limestone forms, and he had no idea. It's just
that's a sore point for
lime, right? That was fun. So, geez, it's a long video.
U.S. Attorney John David Roy Atchison and U.S.
Should we try and skip ahead to maybe like the structuring or withholding stuff, because I kind of don't care. I don't care to hear Kent talk about this. Oh, he had got off the plane with a doll and a jar of Vaseline. Kent just slandered this guy who has very little to do with his case.
Yes, in the interest of time, it's better to do that but I do want to make a point that Kent Hovind has for years been lying about this Atchison's involvement. And when you look into it, Atchison was a prosecutor who did some disgusting things. It's just been outlined. But it looks as though the only documents he filed were after Kent's convictions and sentencing. So he had a very minor role in it. And the fact that he was a terrible person, a despicable person, and all the stuff with children, that still has nothing to do with Kent's conviction. Kent is doing a red herring. And Kent should not be throwing stones when he lives in a glass house, considering his friendships with Brady Byram, who likes to keep it in the family from what I've heard, and Chris Jones. So,
right.
Kent is very foolish to bring this up. First of all, it is irrelevant what the prosecutor's private life and disgusting things that he did, and I don't deny that he did those, but secondly, Kent's own friends are like that, and Atchison's involvement was very minor anyway. So there you go. That's the truth.
When he shows this, it immediately makes you think of Chris Jones and Brady Byram, at least
Yes,
in my mind.
It does. Yeah.
I would just like to correct this commenter. I am absolutely not a bottom. I'm a top, and I will prove it to you, sir.
I think Christ brings the sword is a Proverbs guy person, isn't he?
You want to see my sword?
He's been around a long time.
Oh boy. So it bugs me that when this guy wants to go after a little girl, Kent is all offended. He's very upset. What a disgusting monster. But when Chris Jones goes after 6 different boys under the age of 12, well, he shouldn't have this albatross hanging around his neck. They need to, he should be able to move on with his life and get his next conviction. But they shouldn't hang this albatross of him abusing Xander. I forget the kid's name. Abusing a new kid. Like, I know it just happened, but are they going to hold Chris Jones his rapes over his head for the rest of his life? Are we going to hold Bill Cosby's rapes over the head for the rest of his life? Are we going to hold Jeffrey Dahmer's murders and cannibalism over his head? These guys, they need to just leave him alone, okay? Leave Brittany alone.
But
Well,
AJ,
but
don't you
when he
realize it was Bohemian Grove and the Illuminati that framed Chris Jones?
Oh.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
pretty sure that that was before Chris Jones was even working there. But yeah, okay.
But the
let's
other
keep
thing
going.
is, you know, when he's defending his good friend and board member Brady, he says, "Well, it was, 30 or 40 years ago, and it was one of his own kin." So it's as though that makes it all right. So Kent is just the ultimate hypocrite here.
Well, it's weird because he admits that Brady Byram did it, but he said that there was no conviction, there was no trial, there was no criminal charge, and it's like, well, what does that mean? You're saying that it's okay because he got away with it? Is that your implication? Because the kid didn't come forward about his own dad until like many decades later, which is a common thing, and is like it's like how he talks about how Cindy didn't come forward. Cindy stayed with Kent for 9 months before they split up, and it's like, well, people don't just end their relationship immediately, especially when they live with the person and have their finances tangled up with them. It's not that easy, Kent. Gee whiz.
But and when of course Jones is found in bed with the young boy, I think he was 11 at the time, and then later on, Hovind is recorded saying, "Well, he has a right to wrestle with the boy." No, he doesn't. But this is the sort of nonsense. But the main point about all this is to draw the hypocrisy of what Kent is saying, and I think we've showed that. But the second point is to show that that the fact that Atchison did these disgusting things too, that has nothing to do with Kent's guilt or innocence. Absolutely nothing. And it's a typical tactic of Kent Hovind.
And
Yeah.
Kent also said that the boy has a right to choose to wrestle as well.
Yes, with a convicted Peter. Crazy. It's nonsense. But all the Hovind followers, and they swallow it. They swallow it whole.
Yeah.
And other things probably too. I don't know.
One thing that Kent said that bothered me was that it's Chris's decision if he wants to sleep in the same bed as what is his what's the kid's name?
Zaire, but yeah.
Zaire. Okay, I was saying Xander. Zaire, and he's saying there was also the kid's decision. Like, you think that the kid in that situation has decision-making power? Like,
No.
are you fucking stupid?
It's a minor. He's a minor. It's disgusting. But Kent has very much double standards, but at least we've proved that.
Okay, the atheism and nihilism that results from believing everything is unintentional seems to lead to a sort of anti-theistic philosophy that in its maturity parallels anti-Semitism. In fact, man, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. This is just gibberish.
Right, see science next time. Leave a donation.
$100,000.
Yeah, make your checks out to not CSU to AJ, my daddy. See Science's daddy. I'm your stepdad. Okay. This is
in reality. What law did I?
Because I have to laugh at this because
you filled out a form.
Well, let's here. We'll just start here.
Did not pay it.
These are the big three, and how long have we been going for? Oh wow. Okay, so we're gonna go through the big three here. Basically, the failure to withhold, the structuring, and then it's supposed to be Kent interfering with an IRS agent, but it's bizarre what he ends up talking about. So yeah, we'll sort of power through this, and then we'll wrap up if that sounds okay to you guys. I can't believe it's already been an hour. Time flies when you're having fun, I suppose, and getting stupid comments in the side chat. But I love you guys anyway. All right.
My lawyer never caught that. I don't know if he was on the take or not. Alan Ritchie from Washington State. We paid him a bunch of money and did not do his job. He could have stopped this case 100 times. Okay. if you did not apply to the IRS for their permission to be a withholding agent, and therefore had no authority to do so. Our ministry would not have had authority to withhold had we wanted to. You have to apply for authority to be a withholding agent. Furthermore, withholding is mandatory only on foreigners per 20.
If we could just say something here, those charges, yes, he was charged with withholding and then failing to pay over. And that's a separate charge to withholding and not paying over. So he did both. So he did both those things. They're not contradictory. That's what he was charged with. Once with not withholding, and that he probably did that a lot. But secondly, when he did withhold some of the money, then the IRS never got it. So in a way, he was sort of double cheating his workers. He's taking some withholding off them at some stage and obviously didn't pay it over. Those are the two separate charges, and he pretends he can't understand that.
Right. This is what I was saying. I was talking about this to, I think either Big Bad Mama or another person, and I was saying that Kent, it's not that hard because all what he did was he failed to withhold the taxes from his employees,
Payroll taxes.
Payroll taxes, and he failed to withhold and then pay that money to the IRS. So basically he kept the money. You know what I mean? You worded it better than I could, Claude. But yeah, exactly what you said. Kent wants you to attack him as long as you don't get nasty like AJ. I think Kent gets fairly nasty with the things that he says, at least when he interacts with me or is talking about me on every single video he makes. For some reason, sorry, I'm living rent free inside his bubble.
26 USC 1441, and you didn't have any foreigners working there, so there was no law broken. The first 12 counts are completely bogus. I did not break any law. Next 45 counts is so-called structuring, which, per the unoverturned rulings of the federal appeals case in Renus, there is no such thing as structuring, because the so-called mandatory reporting form was never properly promulgated by the IRS in the early 70s, conformant to another congressional act called the Paperwork Reduction Act. There never was a law against structuring. Never was. The Bank Secrecy Act, banking activity form is voluntary and not mandatory. Plus, I can't tell the bank to fill out a form or not fill out a form. I can't determine what they do. There is no criminal liability attached to withdrawing or depositing less than $10,000 in any transaction. Banks today all believe.
And actually, you can prevent them from filling out the form by doing something where you withdraw money in amounts that are just under $10,000, which is the reporting requirement. It's called structuring. So yeah, you can prevent them from filling the form out. That's what structuring is. That's a crime. That's what you did.
Exactly right, AJ. You've hit it on the head there. That is exactly what structuring is.
Yeah, I've always wanted to ask Kent, like, if you didn't do structuring, why did you have Joe make all the withdrawals? Why? You know what I mean? I don't see any other reason other than he thought, well, if I inevitably get caught, then I'll just say she did. I'll just say, hey, I'm a pastor. I'll wear a shirt that says I'm with stupid and say it was all her idea. She made me do it. Oh shit!
Kind of stuff.
Whoops!
Pressure. I'm not a tax.
My YouTube channel is not evolving. Oh, okay. I lost my. Jeez, this is a long video. Oh, I'm all over the place. Okay.
You could go to the part about the tobacco.
Yeah, well, that's
the very last charge that he had, or
yeah, that's what we were about to get to. Oh, here we are.
The manufacturing plant interfering with is self-perpetuating still today.
So, the charge was not interfering with an officer; it was interfering with an IRS officer. Like they were pretty direct about it, were they not? Like,
Well, and it was filing a false and frivolous lawsuit against the IRS, making threats of harm to to those investigating him,
yeah,
filing a false complaint against IRS agents investigating him, and destroying records. All were in it, part of that one charge.
right. And he also, did a prayer on his radio show, or an implied threat, basically, that God was going to strike down Scott Schneider for what he did, and the IRS basically included that because they are taking what Kent says seriously, because they don't know if this is a metaphor for something else. But I don't know if either one of you are looking at the charges and see if you can find where it says interfering with an officer, and if it says like IRS officer. I might try to look this up too, but yeah, keep going.
There's one last count: interfering with an officer. This is my last charge I was charged with. According to the regulations of the statute I was charged with interfering with a tobacco inspection officer who appeared at the manufacturing plant, tobacco warehouse, tobacco shipping company, or tobacco retailer store, and I somehow blocked their way or refused to show them tobacco inventory logs. They took a tobacco law to come after me for interfering with an officer. I smoked 2 cigarettes when I was 12 and decided I'm not going to do that. But I don't sell tobacco, don't make tobacco. This is and some of you atheists are out there still saying I deserve to go to jail. What law did I break? Paul maintained his innocency, didn't see in front. He said, look, show me.
His what now? What did he maintain, Kent?
Deserve to go to jail. What law did I break? Paul maintained his innocency, didn't see in front. He said, look, show me what I did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like, that's, it's petty to make fun of someone for misspeaking, but that was funny. And Ken does it all the time also.
Here's where he compares himself to Paul, of course.
Oh, of course.
Show me my crime. They couldn't, because there wasn't one. You guys, show me my crime.
That haircut? Oh, got him.
They took a tobacco law and charged me with it and convicted me. Let's see. So I supposedly blocked their way or refused to show them my tobacco inventory logs, when in reality, he only asked the public on the radio to pray for him, for the agent to stop the fraud. Summary from the legal team: you did not break any laws and were fraudulently convicted. Structuring and smurfing examples. Let's say someone has $90,000 in cash. If they want to avoid reporting requirements, there are no requirements, okay? They split this up into 10 transactions of $9,000. This is an example of structuring. Remember, structuring transactions in this way is illegal.
And Kent made withdrawals of $9,500 every 2 weeks. And I like to point out to, or I just like to point this out, if you didn't know this, that the reason, obviously, that they, I guess, sort of picked this set of charges against Kent is because the crimes are connected. So Kent did not want to pay his employees via paychecks that have a paper trail, because obviously, if you get a paycheck from, like a normal workplace, you're going to see that, you got deductions for, the U.S. government and, for different things. Your paycheck is taxed. And Kent, didn't want to go through that. So he would have Joe go to the bank and withdraw just under $10,000. And this was, if you look at the dates on the charges, this was done like clockwork every 2 weeks. And I mean, when people are, employees somewhere, it's like, how often do they get paid? It's usually every 2 weeks they get a paycheck, except in this case, it was cash, which means that Kent would also be able to pay his employees, whatever he wanted, technically, probably giving them lower wages because he doesn't have to adhere to minimum wage laws, And so these crimes, these charges are connected. So he doesn't want to have employees that are paid with paychecks that can be taxed. So he calls them missionaries, and he's not withholding money from their salaries or what is paid to them to give to the IRS. So that's the failure to withhold, and then to pay them, he's structuring his withdrawals. So if that makes sense. So I
Yes,
just like to point that out.
there's also a witness that at the trial, apparently a former employee, who testified that Hovind knew of and complained about the reporting requirements. So there's pretty good evidence that he deliberately structured his withdrawals. He's playing very cute here.
Absolutely. My favorite is when he lies and says that structuring is about taking amounts over 10,000.
Yeah.
That was good meme.
Yeah.
And he was depositing $1 to $2 million a year.
Yeah, when they went to Kent's house to arrest them, Joe Hovind had I think a lockbox or a small safe with $17,000 cash in it. Which is normal. It's like you put your money under the mattress. It's maybe a little bit more than most people, but from A1 Chiefs fan 11, we have a super chat for $10. Thank you. Chiefs fans always with the big donations. Okay, so we have poor Hovind being held accountable for crimes he committed and called out by the public. He isn't responsible for any wrongdoing because he is above the law, don't you know? Well, Ken didn't do anything wrong, ever. He's literally never done anything wrong, has never made a mistake. He is effectively like Jesus. He has led a perfect life. So, really we need to bow down and kiss his toes and wash. We need to wash the Hovinds.
That was well said, Chiefs fan.
Yeah, thank you, Chiefs fan, for the donation and all your donations. Because really, this guy is always sending the big super chats and the super thanks. And I'm very grateful for the generosity of all of my audience members. Is there anything you guys want to say before we wrap up? This has been a lot of fun, honestly.
Well, I want to say that he did get an appeal, because it's a bit, doesn't make that exactly clear, but there was an appeal. And then after the appeal upheld the conviction, he did ask the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court was satisfied that the appeal court got it right, the 11th Circuit Court, and so they didn't go any further with that. But apparently the appeal court said the government had proved that Kent knew about the tax laws required, and they were very satisfied with the evidence. And I think seeing that today that the evidence is totally clear, and so he was rightfully caught. And instead of being a bit humble about it or even regretful, he showed no regret whatsoever. And that's why he got that big sentence. Apparently, at one stage, he was asked by the court if he spoke or understood English. And his smart-ass comment was, to some extent. Well, and that fits with the way Kent is as a person. So we've shown today, and thank you, AJ, what structuring it is and why he's guilty of it. We've shown the counter-arguments to all that nonsense he put up the other day. And Kent is just as guilty as can be, and it's just tragic that people still follow him and send their hard-earned money in so that he can continue this pattern of taking advantage of probably very nice but gullible people. So thank you.
All right, Big Bad Mama, did you want to add anything before we?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, AJ, for doing this. This was good.
Sure.
So in this video, he also made a statement that 2 juries were dismissed until the guilty verdict was made, which indicates that he had 3 trials for these charges, which I have no knowledge of. I just wanted
It's
to point
just not
that
true.
out.
Yeah.
And does he mean there were 2 hung juries or 2 motions granted for new trials? I just view it as another lie, basically, by Kent. And I'd also like to say he keeps going through these things that just lead me to believe like his current thing of somebody stealing from his ministry. And I have a hard time believing that it might not be him that's guilty of doing this and trying to get more donations, just based on all this decades of things that he's done, con jobs, basically. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Well, it's odd because Kent says it's weird because it seemed like he said at first because he talked about this guy for a little while and then we didn't hear anything. But now he's like opening his videos by saying that I think first he said that the guy was in jail, and then now he's saying that he's going to be in jail. Like, I don't know.
Story changes.
Yeah.
But that's a very good point about the juries, because he says something about the juries being, there was 2 different juries before he got a conviction. Well, as far as I know, that judges can't dismiss a jury without ordering a new trial. And this is a new point Hovind brings up. So I suspect it's not true.
So just to answer this question, there is a Reddit AMA from somebody who went to a Christian school that Kent taught at, and there might be one more, yeah. So you can Google that, and the Reddit link will, you can find it pretty easy if you Google that one. So okay. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Thank you guys so much for being in the side chat and hanging out, except for C Science. And, we will just see you guys in the next one. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, AJ.